Hey everyone, and welcome to Ramblin' Reviews, where we analyze different types of media and or their cultural relevance. My name's Christian, and this is The Amazing Spider-Man, issue number 4. Nothing Can Stop the Sandman, written by Stan Lee and illustrated by Steve Ditko. Now, we open the story on Spidey just basically cursing a billboard with JJ on it, saying how a new editorial about how Spider-Man's a horrible menace is going to be starting in the Daily Bugle soon. Again, it is now officially called the Daily Bugle. I don't think it's ever actually referred to as Now Magazine from this point moving forward, but in any case, yeah, officially called the Daily Bugle, so there you go. But, he's cursing the billboard, and he sees some criminals, or at least what he thinks to be criminals, cased in a jewelry store, and he decides to, attack them and, spring and get them before they can actually rob the place. And like a racist Karen, these guys decide, I know how we can get them to stop. Let's call the cops. So they call the cops, and the guys come up, and Spidey's about to take him, and they're like, well, Spidey's harassing us. We're not doing anything wrong. And the cop even kind of looks at them. He's like, yeah, I don't know. You guys do seem pretty shady. I don't, you guys get out of here before he's like, you guys better get out of here. If I were Spidey, I'd probably think the same thing. As Spidey makes his way away from the cops, he sees the billboard of JJ again and thinks, that's it. No one trusts me anymore because of him. I gotta do something about this. I'm gonna go pay him a little visit. So he heads over to the Daily Bugle, but realizes quickly that JJ isn't there, so he instead decides to leave him a little gift in his office. Now, don't think too crass about this. He's not shitting on his desk or anything, although that is the first thing I thought of when I think, oh, this person's going to leave a nasty gift for somebody in their office. But, yeah. We'll find out exactly what the gift actually is later. But as Spidey is leaving the scene, he notices an escaped convict by the name of Flint Marko. He remarks to himself and to the audience how, this is a very wanted man and he needs to take him in. He's like, how did he even escape from prison? All right, let me go take him down. And as he does, he realizes he can't grab him because Flint Marko turns to sand right away and fades through Spidey's arms, because this is the introduction of the Sandman. Spidey tries to throw a punch at him and goes right through him again like sand. However, interesting thing, Sandman kind of explains that as he's able to, soften himself in order for punches and stuff to go right through him, he's also able to harden himself. Phrasing, I know. He's able to harden, he hardened himself. Like if Spidey goes to throw a punch at his jaw, he basically turns his jaw into cement and practically breaks Spidey's hand, as he then flings him off the other side of the building, or flings him to the other side of the building, I should say. Now, Spidey lands in such a way that his mask gets torn somehow, and we have yet another instance of the whole, oh no, my secret identity could be exposed, it would break Aunt May's heart, I'd be thrown in jail, blah, blah, blah. Are you getting tired of this contrived, conflict yet that they keep doing over and over again? Because I clearly am. So Spider-Man runs away. Sandman thinks he's a coward and just starts going on a crime spree using his powers. He can do all kinds of different things, like turn his finger into a key and use it to pick locks and stuff, where he's able to, slide under bars and all these different things and get into bank safes and all this stuff, which is really his main thing that he does. One thing that I do like about Sandman in a lot of even his adaptations and stuff is he's a very simple villain. He's just after the big score. He's just trying to get a bunch of money. That's his main thing. However, as Peter's back at home sewing up his mask, and there's a nice little moment where he even kind of pricks his finger while sewing, and you see him sucking on his finger. I just think it's funny. It adds a little kind of funniness to that whole thing. He's watching the news where they explain how Flint Marko is this notorious, horrible criminal who is being held at Island Prison. Yes, not Alcatraz, And not to be confused with Prison Island from the Sonic franchise either, but just Island Prison. I know there's Rikers in real life, and in Spider-Man there's well, there is Rikers. They do use Rikers, but in the Spider-Man franchise there is also and of course there's also the Raft, which I know at least from Spider-Man Web of Shadows and the Spider-Man 4, or sorry, the Spider-Man PS4, later PS5, and also PC game, Insomniac Spider-Man. I just like to call it Insomniac Spider-Man because it gets confusing. But yeah, but right now, at least in the lore of Spider-Man, it's just referred to as Island Prison. But in any case, weird, silly names aside, it explains how Flint Marko is this notorious criminal. Doesn't explain what he does, what he's there for, anything like that. But apparently, he's such a horrible guy. He's there. It explains how he breaks out. He's like the only person that's ever broken out, and he escaped into a atomic factory testing site, an atomic devices testing center. In the Spider-Man 3 movie, it was a nuclear testing site. Well, not nuclear, but it was some kind of scientific testing site. In Spectacular Spider-Man, he gets like, I don't remember if he's like infused or like if it's a shot kind of thing they give him, or if he's like, no, he has like this like liquid kind of fill him up that he's turned into the Sandman from that. And I think the Rhino is similar in that. Spectacular Spider-Man is, again, my favorite adaptation of the Spider-Man character and lore. So forgive me, there will be a lot of discussion of that, as well as the 90s Spider-Man series and the games that I really like, because those are my favorite things from Spider-Man. But hey, we're talking about the comics, so in any case, they then go on to explain how somehow this gave him these magical sand powers, and he explains what we've kind of already seen and talked about regarding Sandman at this point. But as Peter's learning about all this, and the audiences as well, Aunt May comes in, and Peter quickly grabs a robe to cover his costume that he's in. And this time, by the way, Aunt May is bringing not crackers and milk, but cookies and milk. The thing that makes much more sense. Unlike crackers and milk, which was in the Amazing Fantasy 15. In any case, Peter is, he's covered up here in Aunt May's like, oh no, you must be cold, you must have caught a fever. That's it, you're staying home, you're, all this stuff. She's doing her whole, babying him, treating him like he's a fragile, and I get the reason they do. To me, a lot of this comes off as really annoying, but I understand the reason they do this whole thing all the time is to kind of juxtapose that Aunt May and so many other people think Peter's this like weak, timid loser kind of guy, when in actuality he's really strong and powerful because he's Spider-Man. But in any case, we have this nice moment where after Aunt May's gone, we see Peter just kind of hiding in his bed, still working on his masks. He's like, well, at least it still gives me time to work on sewing my mask back up. So I guess it could be worse, essentially. We cut to the Bugle where JJ, he's, usually not happy, and he's not happy today, especially as he gets into his office, sits down, and finds the little present that Spidey left for him. Sits down on a pile of webbing, and immediately orders Betty Brant. He's like, Miss Brant, get me new, get me new pants, everything. So, yes, that was the gift that Spidey left. I don't know if it's ever mentioned in any of the early comics, not that I remember so far, but the webbing, at least as we understand it now in Spider-Man lore, only lasts about an hour. So either that wasn't a thing yet at the time of writing this, or Spidey did that very recently, and JJ, no, that can't be the case, because we saw that like he was up all night sewing the mat. Yeah, so okay, that part didn't exist in the lore yet. But in any case, he orders Betty Brant to get him new pants, and I believe this is the first introduction of Betty Brant as well. Yeah, as Peter's coming into the office, he actually meets Betty here, and who of course, Betty's going to become an important character. That's why I'm bringing so much attention to her right now. But she asked me, like, hey, can you bring these pants to JJ? He's not in a good mood, and I certainly don't want to face him. He's like, yeah, he completely forgot. He does actually mention that, yeah, he left the memento, as he says, he left that for JJ yesterday. So yeah, no, the whole webbing only lasting an hour thing didn't exist yet. So it's interesting to see just how different so many of these things are as we continue with in the beginning of the lore with these characters and these fictional universes and everything. But in any case, once JJ gets his pants and all that, Peter comes in and JJ's like, well, do you have any new pictures for me? And Peter's like, actually, I wanted to see if I could get an advance. And this just sets JJ off. He does the whole, you kids you days, you don't want to work for anything, you just want money given to you, all this stuff. And I hope understanding that and understanding that this was something written back in the 60s helps you to understand that this whole argument as well of the young people don't want to work anymore has also always been a narrative that old curmudgeons like JJ, that's definitely what he's a stand-in for, has been, saying about the youth for decades. It's nothing new in the 20s. It wasn't anything new in the late 2010s or anything like that. This goes back to the 60s and before. All of this stuff is nothing new. So the next time you hear people saying about, kids these days or how kids are too lazy to work, just think, there were people like JJ saying the same thing back in the 60s when the people who are complaining about that stuff now were kids themselves potentially reading this comic. So, just a little bit of self-awareness there and some food for thought. As Peter gets to school later, we have Flash and Liz remarking about how Liz is getting ready to go on a date with Peter. She remarks to him, she's like, he's asked me out so many times, I figured I'd finally give him a chance. Which is certainly not the best way to go about getting someone to go out with you. Don't pester them. If they say no, accept that and move on. If they later decide they want to go out with you because you've shown something that makes them attractive to you, then or makes them attracted to you, then by all means. But pestering somebody is certainly not the way to go about it. In any case, she remarks to Peter about how she's looking forward to the date, and Peter's like, oh my god, I completely forgot. I have something else going on. Now, of course, he can't tell her what that something else is, but this really pisses her off. She's like, you gotta understand, Liz is like the school baddie. She's like the it girl. So for somebody, for her to be rejected, for a date to be broken off with her must be like a huge blow to her ego. But also, for Peter to be doing this is intended also to show the audience how important being Spider-Man is to him, because he even thinks about, like, I must be an idiot. I just canceled a date with Liz Allen, the Liz Allen, to be Spider-Man. Like I need to have my head examined. I must be insane. But as he's daydreaming, as the teacher thinks, he's basically, all right, if you're not going to be paying attention to my class, Parker, why don't you take these light bulbs down to the boiler room? Now, I don't know if a boiler room is something that doesn't, or I'm sorry, not light bulbs, beakers and, I don't know, those glass science-y things, okay, I don't know if this is a time thing, a state thing. This takes place in New York. I live in Florida. We don't have basements in Florida. I've recently learned that there's this thing called boiler rooms that places have, which I think are in the same area as the basement. I don't know if that's a thing. In any case, while he's there, he talks to the janitor who mentions this king-size vacuum cleaner he's working on, which will become important later in a moment here. So Sandman is evading the cops, and he realizes the best place to do that, for some reason, is the high school across the street, Midtown High, where Peter is. So he goes to the school, and he quickly runs into the principal, who's giving a lecture to his class. Not his class, but a class. And again, villain motivations here are just so odd and contrived, but in any case, he talks to the principal and decides what he wants is to force him to give him a diploma. See, Flint Marko has never graduated high school. Shocker, I know. But he's never graduated, and so he says, I want a diploma. principal stands up to him. He's like, I can't just give you a diploma. You have to go through like schooling and all that stuff. He's like, I want, he's trying to force his way through. And I do like this moment because as the principal is standing up to him, the students are all impressed. They're like, whoa, he's really standing up, for us and for like everyone here. Because, Sandman's all like, I'll hurt these students essentially if, But, in the middle of as things are getting real heated here, we have this great shot where Spidey jumps in and gives Sandman a good right hook. Now, this time Sandman wasn't prepared, so he didn't harden his face for Spidey to nearly break his hand like the first time they fought. Spidey and Sandy fight all throughout the school, where his classmates are even kind of, talking about, oh, I wonder where Peter is. Oh, he probably went and hid because he's lame. Again, the whole thing of, oh, Peter's lame, he's a loser, he's pathetic. Again, I get it. It's the juxtaposition of what people think Peter is versus how he actually is. Now, the two of them continue fighting throughout the entire school until they eventually make it to, you guessed it, the boiling room, or the boiler room, whatever it's called, where, remember, I mentioned that that industrial vacuum was going to come in handy. Spidey tries using different tools against the Sandman. He, of course, he tries using this drill of some sort. I don't know why he thought that would have, hurt him, but in any case, he uses the vacuum we saw earlier to finally suck up the Sandman, phrasing once again, and get them all in the vacuum container thing, whatever the part of the vacuum that actually collects the dirt is. But he realizes, oh no, I forgot to actually take the pictures. So what he decides to do, and again, I don't know if this is a Florida thing or this is a time thing or what it is, but Peter grabs some sand in a bucket that's used for fire, apparently. I guess before, maybe this is before fire extinguishers, I don't know. And maybe like people used to throw sand on fire. I have no idea, truthfully. But in any case, Spidey decides to throw the sand in the air and take photos of himself punching the sand as if it were Sandman. I think this is actually an incredibly like funny way to handle this kind of predicament. It's pretty creative, and I really do like this overall. But again, I don't know. You guys, I don't know. Let me know in the comments or anything if this whole using sand to put out fires, if that was like ever a common thing or what have you. But I'm certainly not familiar with it. But I like it regardless for the sake of the story here. JJ gets to the school now and begins talking with the cops who are also there, where he's like, I want pictures of Spider-Man, of course, and of the Sandman. He thinks the Sandman and Spidey are in league and all that stuff. He, of course, doesn't trust Spidey. Anyway, Spidey shows up on the roof. He's like, all right, I got him. I caught the bad guy. I got him right here for you. Like, all right, come down, bring the container with Sandman in it. We want to ask you some questions and stuff. Peter thinks about this for a minute, but then he also thinks, well, if we do that, JJ's probably going to unmask me. We're going to have a whole slew of problems here. And once again, we have the whole, it's going to break on man's heart, and blah. We literally have this like twice in the same issue now. So again, you know how I feel about all this. So instead, Spidey webs up the container and brings it down to them that way. And JJ catches up with Spidey in the hall as Peter comes out of a locker, and he's like, oh, I was hiding, but I got your pictures. I don't have the, I just have the film. It's not developed yet. And he's like, that's all right. I'll take the developing out of your pay. Like, just a real swell guy. You know what I mean? He's, even talking to the cops, and they're like, well, I don't know. It looks like Spider-Man actually, helped us here. We got everything. He's like, what are you talking about? They're in league. Spider-Man's trying to steal the glory. All these different things, right? And the cops even tell him, look, you can say what you want in your papers, but people are going to realize eventually that you just got it out for Spidey for basically no reason here. But yeah, as Peter catches up with the rest of his classmates, he explains to them the whole thing of how he was hiding in a locker, just like and he tells Liz, he's like, oh, well, I can make our date tonight after all. I don't know what he's expecting her to just be like, oh, that's great. I'm so glad like your schedule cleared up. No, like of course she already made plans. He's like, yeah, no, I already made plans. Like I'm sorry, we're not doing this. And Flash kind of rubs on it and says, he's like, yeah, that's right. She's going out with me again. And this is the first time we see where Peter just grabs Flash and is like, all right, I've had enough of you. And he's about ready to punch him. And Flash even mentions, I've been waiting for this worm. He calls him a worm. And, Peter, he's about to throw his punch, and he realizes, I could really damage him. And then my secret identity's exposed and everything, and he is not worth it. So he lets him go, and Flash is like, yeah, that's what I thought. The whole thing. This, it's a really, really, tense ending, and almost ends with him finally getting one over and putting his bully in his place. But he decides to do the right thing, keep his secret identity, and keep the guy's face intact. You know what I mean? But yeah. Now, to make matters worse, while Flash is getting away with the girl that Peter wants to be with to date here, as he's leaving, he's seeing all these people and hearing all these people reading the Bugle and having all these discussions about Spider-Man. As he's just walking by, they don't know he's Spider-Man. They're just talking about him, and there are some people that are like, oh, he took down that awful Sandman. That's great, but then there are these other people who are like, oh, he's just as crazy as them. He's a criminal. He's a crook. He probably just does this for his own like sick, twisted joy. He gets some kind of pleasure out of he does it for the thrill and all these things. Even have these kids who are like, oh, don't you want to be Spider-Man? And the other guy's like, nah, I want to be the Human Torch. And all this stuff just really gets Peter down. And he starts to think like, what if they're right? What if I am crazy? What if all of this that I'm doing is just, should I just give up? And then he decides no. He's like, it doesn't matter. I can't give up. I've been given these powers for a reason, and no matter what, I need to stay Spider-Man. And I just hope eventually everybody will understand. In any case, that is the end of The Amazing Spider-Man issue number 4. I liked this issue overall. Similar to with Doc Ock, the motivation. I think I don't know. I don't know who had a worse motivation: Doc Ock for just wanting to take over the power plant just because, or Sandman just on a whim being like, "Oh, I want to get my diploma now." Like, what the hell? Where did that come from? But in any case, I like the little introduction to Betty Brant, who again is going to become a very important character later on here. I like the little thing with how Spidey kind of messed with JJ there. I like how we're seeing the effects of JJ, his editorial in the Daily Bugle, affecting Spider-Man's reputation negatively, and how this kind of double-edged sword where, yes, this is Peter's job and how he makes money off of this, but at the same time he's damaging his and we have this whole thing between this and how he was going to cancel on, again, the school baddie and the girl that he really wanted to be with, he really wanted to go out with, canceling on her and damaging his reputation of Spider-Man. All we're really seeing those worlds of Spider-Man and Peter Parker colliding, which is some of the stuff that makes the character of Spider-Man and the lore, the story, the series of Spider-Man so impactful and interesting, and it's really good. It's really good. The origin, of course, for Sandman will be expanded upon later and all that stuff. But where we're sitting at right now in the lore, we got a good thing going. So again, it really is no surprise how Spider-Man quickly became so successful for Marvel, and how he would continue to become such a popular, not even just superhero, but a popular brand, a popular just everything. And we'll see that more and more as we continue on here. But In any case, as always, these are just my thoughts. Let me know what yours are in the comments down below. Subscribe, ring the bell to stay up to date. Leave a like if you like, and if not, I hope you find something to do. Later, guys. Peace and love.